many, many times that I had like $100 left in the checking account. And I often would worry, like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get through next month? And then obviously, psychologically, Ross was an osteopath in practice for 6 years in the UK before we came here. And to have all of that taken away from you, all that identity, and to start over as if none of that mattered. I know psychologically it was difficult, but Ross stepped into this academic world where he thrives. And I was thinking, oh my God, how are we going to do this? How are we going to have enough? Welcome to Warriors at Work. This is Jeanie Coomber, your guide and host. Warriors at Work is a place where everyone in the workplace can come together, gain insight, encouragement, tell stories, connect, and share wisdom. We are a place of like-minded people at different stages of life, all coming together with a shared interest of enlightening and inspiring one another. If you're interested in going from the predictable to the potent, and you want to find your warrior magic, step into the journey with us. Welcome to Warriors at Work. Hey everybody, it's Jeanie. Thank you so much for joining me here at the Warriors at Work podcast. So today, I have a very different interview to share with you. I brought in a dear friend, Naketa Thigpin, who has been on my show numerous times. She is a licensed clinical social worker. She is a masterful relationship advisor who works with entrepreneurial couples. So I asked that she interview Ross and I. And Ross, for those of you who don't know, is my husband of 26 years. So he has seen all of the iterations of Jeanie. He has been absolutely crucial in my growth and my evolution. He is my anchor. He is totally different than me, way more laid back than I am. He is my confidant. He's my best friend. He is the comedian in our family. And I felt as though it was important as I am sharing this warrior road and this warrior journey with all of you. And I'm asking that you step into your fullness and your greatness in the world so that you can bring forth all that is within you inside of your career aspirations and the life and the purpose for your existence. I felt it was important for me to reveal this part of myself and how we as a couple have grown in our relationships. We share our trials, our tribulations. It hasn't always been unicorns and rainbows. How we work through some of those things, and even just where our relationship started when I met him in London in 1994, and how far we have come. Not only the distance that he left his country to come to this country and start over, which is exactly what he did. He actually started over. But we really talk through a lot of the idiosyncrasies of our partnership. And that's really what it is he aligned with my higher calling and my sense of being and the purpose that I felt I needed to fulfill. And he really sees me, understands me, and is a really, really important part to this whole warrior journey. So I felt compelled to share him with all of you. And I hope it reinforces some things within yourself, within your own experience, but also challenges some possibilities for yourself and whatever partnerships look like for you. Enjoy. All right, you're on, Naketa.
I'm excited to be here with you. Thank you for carving out this time to be open and honest and allow people to see what a real power couple looks like. I appreciate you, Jeanie and Ross. So first question, how long were you dating before you got married? Be honest.
That's a trick question. We met in London.
Okay.
And then Ross moved back to the U.S. with me. And then we got married in 95.
Yes, that was less than 2 years.
Less than 2 years.
Okay. So less than 2 years before Ross got turned out, and then you decided to put a ring on it. I like it. So how long have you guys been married up to date today?
26 years in July.
But
Well, yes, here we go.
so we got married, and only our immediate family. There might be some people watching this that are going to go, wait a second. They got married in 1998. We actually got married in 1995 because Ross had to reschool as a chiropractor, and we needed a green card, and we needed the funding for the school loans in order to facilitate that. So we got married in secret, put the rings away, told the rest of the world we got engaged, and then we got remarried in 1998.
So the family got to come to the party.
Yes.
In 98, but they didn't get to play while you guys were having this secret love affair. How was that for your intimacy behind the scenes?
Well, our families were at the 95 marriage.
Oh, they were.
Yeah, my brothers and parents, and it was kind of nice. It was a more intimate occasion, what I would call it as the marriage, and then the wedding was in 98, which was and I think it made the wedding actually a lot more fun because Jeanie and I had already been married for 3 years without anybody knowing. So there wasn't the pressure as being like a new couple getting married for the first time. And so we were actually able to enjoy our wedding. And I don't think it was a coincidence that the family still says what a fun wedding it was. And I think that may have been the reason. But I think from having that experience with Jeanie and I having to go through hurdles from the beginning,
Right.
helped us knowing that, what we can go through. And like I say, I made the decision to come back with Jeanie after, we'd only dated for really about a year. And that in of itself was a wedding, just making that decision to relocate to another country.
Yeah. I mean, you walked into a brand new relationship with some really serious, heavy hitting questions for your future and how you guys were going to make that work. Did you feel like that made things easier from a bonding perspective? Because now you're in work crises together, trying to work together to make sure that things roll out in the way that you hope them to be? Or did it put more strain on the earlier part of your relationship because of all those external issues that you didn't really have control over?
I was very focused on getting it done. No shocker. That I ran it almost like a project plan. Okay, we're going to move from the UK to the US. Here's what I found out. Here's what's going to work. Here's what's not going to work. And then it got really serious because you have to go through Immigration Naturalization Service. You get interviewed, and it didn't dawn on me that I was the one that would have been lying as the person marrying somebody from another country. And it didn't dawn on me until like the middle of the interviews. I'm like, oh, they're trying to figure out if I'm telling the truth. And that's really where I think it took our relationship to the next level, because you realize this is really serious, and it's going to open up a lot of doors for him to go back to reschool as a chiropractor. It's also going to bring a lot of strain because we had to live apart and all those other things, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it was very serious very quickly. And I was, we were lucky. My parents were very much on board. They were really supportive. So were my brothers. And that made all the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a huge difference. I think that was one of the things that made my parents feel more comfortable with the situation. Because I don't know if I really ever realized how tough it was for them to let their son move away. But I think the fact that they'd met Jeannie's parents and kind of knew what situation I was going into, that made it a little bit more comfortable for them. And I think it definitely made it easier for me. And as Jeanie says, they couldn't have been more supportive of us. And I think it was probably easier for me as well, because I was coming into a new situation, and then I was going to go to chiropractic school. So when I went to chiropractic school at the beginning of 96, like a year later, that was a whole new adventure for me as well. And I kind of then I wasn't living as much vicariously through Jeanie and her family. Now I could create my own identity in another country. But it was tougher for Jeanie because now she was back in her old firm and doing her thing and trying to pay the bills and this, that, and the other. And I was kind of on this adventure and academics, etc. And for Jeanie, it was tougher as well. So it was definitely a tough experience to go to. Did it make our relationship stronger? I think it made us realize that we could solve a lot of different things together when we could work together. And you kind of get over that it'll be all right when you realize that the when never actually comes, because there's always something else that you have to get. Oh, it'll be all right when we go to college. Oh, it'll be all right when you graduate. Oh, it'll be all right when you get a job. But there's always something that you're striving towards. Okay, the when is never going to be there. We'll just deal with things as they come along.
What I was thinking is when he just described that, like, we had no money, Naketa. I was taken from Paul to Peter, and there was many times that I had like $100 left in the checking account, and I often would worry, like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get through next month? And then obviously psychologically, you know, Ross was an osteopath in practice for 6 years in the UK before we came here. And to have all of that taken away from you, all that identity, and to start over as if none of that mattered. I know psychologically it was difficult, but Ross stepped into this academic world where he thrives. And I was thinking, oh my God, how are we going to do this? How are we going to have enough? And I remember you got like a teaching assistant position where he earned some money, and I cried. I'm like, you're earning some money, and it was amazing. I'm like, we were going to be okay. It was so difficult. So difficult, but just talking about it and really being a team. And I think that was a real differential for our relationship is we are a team. We do things together. We talk about things together. I mean, it's never been perfect, but we certainly have that mentality.
Yeah, no, I love that. You were reading my mind for where I was going in terms of how this impacted you financially, because we know one of the number one reasons that marriages don't make it is because of finances, right? Like there's financial communication issues, actual financial issues. There's just not enough in the bucket to pay for the constant leaks in the roof, right? Like all the things that happen. And you guys were navigating that really tough storm, and I dare say hurricane that followed it, once you moved over here in the US and tried to start a new slate and to get things going. Because one of the other issues that impacts a lot of our power couples is losing your identity and feeling like you have to dim your ambition to make the other one have space and grow. And you guys started your relationship with Ross having to walk away from an idea. You didn't lose it necessarily, but you had to choose to start a new one and figure out what that was going to look like on all levels. Did you guys have kids yet when you were doing this, or you waited a little bit before you had kids?
Yeah, we didn't have our first daughter till I was 35. And so we got married in 95. I was 26. And then the big marriage, I was 29. So we waited till Ross was out of chiropractic school. And
yeah, that was one thing that we sort of had decided on. It was somewhere not necessarily conscious, but it was pretty conscious that we wanted to wait until we had kind of the dust had settled, etc. And I think that was a good decision. And what I was just going to go back to what we were talking about before was, I think a lot of the foundation of this and the teamwork and etc. was based on trust. I think there was a lot of trust in our each other and our own potential. For me personally, as Jeanie alluded to, me going to chiropractic school was not only academically very important to me, and I was very academically successful as well. I do kind of thrive in that environment, but more personally, it gave me not only a sense of identity, but it gave me a lot more self-confidence, because now being in practice in England, when I came into this college, a chiropractic school, I became almost like a conduit between the academics and the teachers and the student body. And so I was sort of looked up to a certain extent by the student body, because I'd been in practice and I'd done it before, so I could help them out. But then the faculty lent on me a little bit as well, because I always tended to know I had an ability, but I always tended to lack confidence, and that helped me. And then also, Jeanie and her family helped in that regard as well. And that's where the trust, not only in each other, but the trust in her family, was so important for our development early on, to knowing that it's going to be okay.
So that brings me to this space of seeing, hearing, appreciating, validating edifying, and desiring each other, which is a huge thing that has to always be a focus. It's like one big umbrella of things that have to happen almost daily for power couples to really thrive and live fully, like live the full life they want. And we get entangled, not Will Smith and Jada Pinkett entangled, but we get entangled in that at times when we're not seeing each other consistently. Of course, you're going to have moments like, I'm busy, I'm focused, I'm blowing out a fire right now. I can't see you and hear you and appreciate you because something really big has my attention. But that should be the exception, not the rule. So often we have to look at each other and realize, where are we making space for our intimacy, our daily intimacy. So I would love to take a minute to talk to you guys about intimacy blocks and like really dig in how you're dealing with them. So one of the intimacy blocks that comes up for many of our power couples is when one, sometimes both people, but usually one person feels like intimacy is just understood. Like, we're going to be physically intimate because we're married and that's just what it is. And we're going to make sure that we have room for each other, period. But then you don't actually have space on your calendar because of all the fires and all the things that you're both doing in your independent businesses. And as you're scaling and impacting the world, you may not actually do it. So how does that intimacy block show up for you? Do you find yourself saying like, well, Tuesday and Thursdays are our night to cuddle? Or, you know, if it happens, it happens. And before you look back, 6 months have gone by. Like, what comes up for you guys when it comes to the emotional and the physical intimacy that really glues couples together? Do those blocks arise for you anymore? Or is that a yesterday's issue, like when you were younger?
I think in the bigger picture, I think what we try to do is certainly be conscious of that in our minds, to be aware of it. And we definitely, you know, kind of either go apart or kind of on parallel tracks, as opposed to actually sort of coming together. We now have an awareness, and this I think was brought up, you know, with us like 7, 8, 9 years ago, whatever, of therapy and sort of self-improvement, and we could get to that in a little bit as well if you want, of just being aware of ourselves, of working on ourselves personally, and then that in of itself then makes the other person more attractive in you. So if you sort of seem like you're kind of just floating along and not really working on yourself, that in of itself isn't necessarily attractive. So I think that's one of the foundations that we had. And then I think just on a daily basis, or, you know, sort of weekly or few days, you know, I'm definitely sort of trying to check in with each other, sort of see, you know, whether Jeannie's like spending time watching a show with one of our daughters. I mean, that's important as well. And I realize that's important, so that's fine. But, you know, Jeannie and I will try and, you know, through this pandemic, like I'm sure a lot of couples have done, try and find shows that we can watch together, even if it's just, you know, sitting on the couch together and having that time, and then having, you know, dinner together, maybe when the girls are out dancing and trying to catch up.
You know how I would answer it? It's very similar to what Ross was saying. I think it's the awareness that we're not alone. We are in a relationship, and each day you may have different needs, but to name wherever you are. And so that's something that I have a lot of consciousness to what Ross was talking about when we were not in a good place and we were very, very mentally and physically, emotionally separate. That was like a big takeaway, is like, there's a lot of signs when that stuff starts to happen, is how are you naming it for what it is, and recognizing that everything stems from our relationship with the family unit, all of our success, everything goes right back to how are we being for each other in this relationship. And the small thing, when I think of intimate, I mean, beyond the obvious, it's, I ask Ross deeper questions like I do with clients. And I try to really listen to what he's saying, not just like, hey, how was your day? Which we do that, which they get, it was good, it was busy, you know, rather than giving the little sound bites. It's, getting into what's the texture, what happened, like
Yeah.
how are you feeling, what are you thinking about, what about this, what about that, and talking about things that are not just like kid related, but like life related. Hey, I'm really worried about this, and I'm an Olympic level worrier. I can worry for everybody, and I can strategize. I'll spend many nights worrying.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll just say, yeah, I'm on a little bit of a worry train right now. And what does it mean? And then I'll ask him some questions. So that to me has been really pivotal for our growth, to make sure we're doing that. Because it's easy to just start getting disconnected and going back into your own patterns of being. And I can self-develop all day long. I got enough books to last 10 more years, and I can be silent meditations and all that stuff, but that's not including the partner that I chose to be with. So
yeah, no, I agree. You know, to Ross's point of really making sure you are personally growing and having your personal development down so that you can have room for your lover is really important. And Jeanie, to your point of really making sure that when that room is there, you know what to do in it, right? Like a lot of people have time to cop a squat on the couch and wiggle their toes together, but they're on opposite sides of the couch. They're not actually watching the same things. Someone's watching a TV, someone's, you know, not actually doing anything except for letting the TV watch them be enraged because they wish they were using the time a little bit differently. So for your point of not just allowing those sound bite moments to happen for the sake of saying, oh, we just talked yesterday. I asked you how you were doing. You said, fine, I left it alone. What do you want from me? I'm not a mind reader, right?
yeah.
And, you know, sometimes you are going to have to give that space. You know, when you see that your lover is in a space, my husband doesn't like to say when I point out and I'll say, are you in a mood? He's like, don't say that. It's really dismissive of all the things that could really be going on internally. Mood is just a quick way of asking, but he's right. Saying, are you in a mood makes a subjective, you know, observation of what you think is happening. And now that person is going to give you what you're looking for. Oh, you want me to be in a mood? That's what you're looking for, right? You know, of having that.
That's a good point. Yeah. And I think as well with that, is that one of the big points for me in our relationship was, you know, for Jeanie benefit really, but it was more for my benefit, was to kind of show up stronger. So now that may just manifest itself as doing something without being asked.
Yeah.
Because then that's me being aware of what so if she comes down and, you know, I've taken the dog out, and, you know, it's little things like that kind of, I think, can really help somebody. Particularly, I know how busy Jeanie is, and, you know, I'm not great at it, but, you know, sometimes doing those things just off the cuff is, I think, helpful. And you know, likewise, it's, you know, her understanding some of the things that I need or good for me to do, and, you know, she's okay to kind of let me go and watch a soccer match or something. You know, it's it's appreciating that as well, and not just taking it for granted. I think that's the big aha that we sort of started to have a few years ago, when we were kind of having more struggles. But the benefit we had then was going right back to the beginning, because of what we'd gone through when I first came here. Our marriage, you know, was going on parallel paths, and we were kind of focused on the children more than ourselves. But we had that kind of basis that we still at least respected each other, and we still liked each other. We just realized that we weren't happy with each other. But the reality was that we weren't really happy with ourselves. It wasn't until we started developing ourselves, I suddenly realized, hey, I'm making myself more attractive to Jeanie. But it was really more about pointing the finger at myself, saying, rather than, why aren't you making me happy?
Right.
That's not Jeanie's job to make me happy. It's my job to make me happy.
Amen. You know, Jeanie knows me well. I'm about to break out the maracas. I'm trying not to touch them. I shake them when someone hits like a pivotal moment. You just went over at least 3 other intimacy blocks. Like you just hit them with the nail right on the head. Blaming each other, not appreciating, using the children as buffers by spending so much of your energy with your kids and your careers and businesses that you have nothing left for the other person, except for pointing a finger at what they're not doing. And, you're therefore not validating the things that they are doing, like taking initiatives to walk the dog, to bring you a cup of tea when they know you're in the office a long time, even keeping your body right? Like keeping your body healthy and as, beautiful as you like it to be, regardless of the shape and size and cultural belief of what bodies look good being for you making sure that you do that for yourself first, and also for your forever love that fell in love with you and all that goodness. Those little moments show that you care, that you hear them, that you appreciate, and it's your way of edifying. You don't have to look like you were when you were 22 when you met, but just making sure that you stay as healthy as you can, because the reality is we're in it till death do us part. I'm not trying to bury you. Right? And I'm sure you're in a space with each other where you want to edify each other, not only physically, but mentally and spiritually, and make sure you have that space. Some of that space is going to come from things like giving yourself permission to pause and having, Ross, I'll pick on your example of watching a soccer match, like having that time. I know Jeanie from so many of our sister circle conversations is like, I just was laying on the floor with my feet up on the wall, right? Like that position you do to let the blood flow, or you just came from a run near the beach, or whatever it is that you're doing for your self-love and self-care allows you to show up better in your relationship, because you are partners, whether in business or not. You're partners in a beautiful experience of creating a legacy that your daughters are watching. They're going to watch and model more of what they see than what they hear from you. And that's just the reality. So I love that you guys are doing that. So I have a fun question to ask. Ross,
Yes.
The world is different. We're in a brand new era for whatever reason, and it's not about lack. It just is what it is. Jeanie is forced to wear the same outfit head to toe for 6 months straight. And you have to pick it out. Every piece.
Oh God.
Describe what she wears 6 months straight. It's clean. It's like she has 1,000 versions of the same pieces. So it's not like she has to keep washing or any of that. What's the outfit that you get to see her in for 6 months straight?
I'll keep it simple. I love it. She wears these and this time of year as well. These summer dresses that really I like. It's kind of traditional. My father was pretty old. He was 48, 49 when I was born. So he was very much a traditionalist. He was born in 1917. So he always showed up in a jacket and a tie. So I'm kind of a little bit traditional in that kind of sense, is that when Jeanie wears a summer dress, it's flowing, it's light, it's sensual. I think as it lends itself to sort of from the female sensuality, as sexuality as well. But yeah, I think that would be it. I mean, it's one thing to look forward to in the summer when she kind of breaks out the dresses, because they look kind of formal, but they're also casual as well.
And permission to go shopping, I guess.
I love that, Ross. Jeanie, what about you? What would you like to see him in for 6 months straight?
Suit. He has a new suit he got, I don't know, a couple of years ago that's like very form fitting. Ross has like a runner's body. He's very, very fit. He looks fantastic in it.
I like it. I see where y'all going. I see how y'all trying to be modest. All right. So recreational intimacy is another huge part of intimacy. Like, people think of emotional and physical intimacy. They might even think about the work and crisis intimacies that we were talking about, like bonding together when there's a fight to be fought, and really being able to come together and tackle that head on, like what you guys had to tackle with all the green card challenges that you had to maneuver through in the beginning of your relationship. You also had to maneuver through what Ross alluded to in the earlier part of your marriage, of really getting clear with what you wanted with each other and saying, I don't hear you and see you and appreciate you in the way that I should, because I'm feeling a little bit lost and I have to come to grips. So I know you guys had gone through some therapy for that for a little while. Before we get into the play part of the intimacy, do you want to share a little bit about why you chose to make that move versus just saying, I'm done, I'm out of here, it's over?
I guess I'll start. It started because I fell into depression. It was pretty straightforward. I just was very numb. It was about a year, I guess, after our second daughter was born. I just felt numb. I couldn't feel anything anymore. And obviously I was very I was isolating and just wanting to be by myself a lot. So I started with a great therapist. And it was through those discussions that she saw, okay, we need to work with both of you. And she put us into a weekend of imago therapy, which was it was transformative, but it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my whole life. I had headaches, backaches, and my body just started to reject because I knew how hard the work was going to be. And it really surfaces all the stuff that you've been taught and conditioned into your whole upbringing. And I knew firsthand any of my dysfunctions from my family upbringing, but I just compartmentalized it. And this was like, you're looking at it all. But what I learned through that weekend is it takes you right back to the beginning. Why did you get connected in the first place? And then it helps you rebuild the infrastructure, and you got to do the work. On some level, I think separating would have been easier because you don't have to do the work. It's harder to stay in. It's harder to look at yourself. And there was one point with the therapist where I was like, I think we should just separate and maybe see what it's like to be apart. And she said, no, that won't work. You won't come back. You'll start focusing on the next thing and you'll not learn anything through this experience.
Yeah.
So she was pivotal. And so she not only pulled me out of a depression, she helped us work back together as a unit. And I think we're one of the examples that she makes reference to. She doesn't say our name, but she makes reference to, and she was the right person. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. She was the right person. She was very similar to my mom. My mom was an LCSW. She had a very similar energy. She was a registered nurse. She also has a very deep spiritual practice. And she had a lot of modalities in her repertoire. So she knew, okay, we're going to play with some EMDR. We do the imago piece. Okay, so let's do some visualization. Let's do some of this. And she was no nonsense.
Yeah.
So she wasn't challenged by a good response or, positioning answer. She was not buying any of that. She was getting right into it. And she was fun and loving and compassionate. And I think that was what made it successful. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree pretty much with all of that. I think the imago itself was the springboard for everything. It wasn't really, they have all these exercises that you can do afterwards and this, that, and the other. And I think she said, nobody ever does those. But what it made us realize, it kind of took us back, both of us, to where we'd come from. And we realized that we weren't actually that different. I think both of us, had great parents and et cetera, but we were lacking some things. We maybe didn't get some things, but even though we came from sort of similar backgrounds in some ways, we dealt with it in different ways. It gave us the opportunity to see how we dealt with things. Jeanie would tend to be more of a sort of solver and isolate, whereas I needed more intimacy. I needed more loving, if you want, or more emotion. It's almost like, it's interesting. Jeanie and I, with our relationship in general, it's almost like we're opposites. That I'm almost more the female in the room, and Jeanie's almost more like the male. So when we came out of the
Naketa's not surprised by it.
Yeah, when we
no.
Exactly. So when we came out of that imago, and then we sort of started with the therapist, she kind of saw, certainly not putting this all on Jeanie, but saw through Jeanie's kind of barriers and all the layers and the onion, when she was able to kind of cut through it. But it also helped me realize what I needed to do, because I needed to basically show up stronger in the relationship. That's one of the things that Jeanie was looking for, and I was looking for Jeanie to be more open. And that's what imago was like. I was the
octopus.
I was the octopus, and she was the
turtle.
So she'd go into a shell, and I was kind of like trying to reach out. And it didn't really take that much of a shift to actually, get where we are. But at the time, Jeanie was definitely, she was, going visiting friends and this, that, and the other, and I was like trying to find out where she was, and that was irritating her because I was sort of following her. Now it's kind of like she's like, oh, should I go out and see my friends? Do you mind? Like, oh no, I don't care. Go. Yeah, it switched around a lot.
I mean, what's really helpful in that too is smothering is another intimacy block. Back to a play question. Here we go, because I know we're coming to a close. How do you choose your recreational intimacy, which is how you play together? What do you choose to do when you're playing? And I'm not necessarily talking about the bedroom, although we can go there, but just in general, how do you play together?
I'll throw out a couple of examples. We just did a 20-week run club together. Ross is a lot more advanced in terms of running than I am, but we did do that together, and that required that we trained hard, really hard. And then the other thing is we're very good. I guess this falls into the recreation bucket of like hosting things, events, and we have the opportunity to have friends over for Memorial Day. That's the first time we're going to be able to do something like that, and we're really good at doing that. So that to me is the recreational side.
Yeah, sharing your love with other people.
Yeah,
I receive that.
Yeah, we have a great social network. It's not huge, but it's decent size. And being in a community town like Ocean Grove is, where you're very close, you're very literally intimate with your neighbors. It makes that very, because we can walk to each other's houses, so it's not like get into a car and this, that, and the other. It's much more organic to have sort of relationships here. And I think to Jeannie's point, the running club, we go to the gym together pretty often, and then we haven't done it this year, but last year we started playing some tennis.
Yeah. So a lot of the power couples that I work with through our company are really happy on paper, right? Like they handle the business, all the work crisis intimacy, like all those things that they can do together. They pay the bills, they make sure the kids go to college, they support their external families, all of that. But they've also spent so much of their energy creating this wild success in their careers and their business that they haven't necessarily had space to prioritize their marriage and this leg of their marriage, right? So when you're 5 years in, you don't know no better, right? You think that you're going to always have sex at any time of the day you want. You don't think there's ever going to be any challenges. You're looking for the next creative, curious adventure. And then life kicks in, storms hit, hurricanes come, a few interval moments of where you feel like there's some peace. And then here comes the tornado that really shows you this is not what they show on Instagram. # no relationship goals right here, right? You realize it's very different than the movies we grew up watching, and everything's hunky-dory minus this one little tiny insignificant issue. And because of that, they're now ready to create joy in their marriage with the same focus and rigor that they put into their careers and maybe even into their children and the other parts of their life. The missing component for many of them is that they are torn with, do I have to choose my lover and us having this time together to create this better marriage while still growing our careers and our businesses and creating the impact, and then lose myself in the process? Or can I have both? Can I still have my own identity, be who I am, be strong and unapologetic and confident and simultaneously insecure with whatever it is that I'm working on, and still make space for my marriage, like really to create that joy in my relationship? What do you say to power couples like yourself who have gone through the ebbs and flows and are in a space now where you feel like, I can have it all? I'm also really clear on what all means for me. It's very different than when I was in the first 5 to 8 years of my marriage. For those that are listening to you right now and they're like, I don't know, I think it's just going to look like this. Like, we're pretty happy. There's no toxicity. We don't hate each other. It's good. We're just going to keep going. But you know that there's more out there for you, more for you to create together, and more for you to accomplish. What do you say to them?
I think a question comes to mind. Have you discussed what your hopes and dreams are? Have you talked about what you're working towards, what you want your life to be? I think what happens is we we all get guilty of this. We just put our head down and we move from thing to thing.
Yeah.
We pick our head up and, oh my God, a year has passed or 10 years have passed. So, when was the last time you brought something like that up? Like, what are your biggest desires? What is it you want to create in the world? And what are you doing every day to move you towards that? And how are we doing it together? That would be my thought.
I love it.
Yeah, and I think on the other side of the coin with that is, when are you satisfied? When are you okay with what is something? So that was for me, for my practice. As you've said before, Jeanie is kind of like a pusher in a good way. I mean, I am where I am largely because of her. But I kind of knew the kind of practice that I wanted to have, and I wanted to have a intimate practice, chiropractic, where it was just me. So in the first few years or so, Jeanie was like, "Oh, are you going to get another chiropractor to come in and this, that, and the other?" And I was like, no, I just want to kind of keep it small. And like, Jeanie's sort of thinking big, like she was sort of saying before, and I want to kind of keep it smaller. But what that enabled me, maybe more luck than judgment, but it enabled me to stay true to myself. But it's also enabled me to have the availability and independence to be able to, one, help Jeanie out, help out the whole family. So now I'm more present for the girls, able to do things. So we're kind of more balanced as a unit. And again, balance is really a lot of the theme here, whether it's all those different blocks that you said, but then kind of creating enough independence around it that you have the time and an ability to do it, as opposed to just being stuck in this one function. Like even today I had the flexibility to move my daughter's dental appointment to tomorrow afternoon, which frees up time to do something else and this, that, and the other. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I had a different kind of business model. So sometimes you need to look at the model that you have, and is it going to give you the ability to do what you want to be able to do? And so when are you satisfied? That sometimes with Jeanie, kind of ask her that question, because it's always kind of getting bigger and bigger, but she's always looking to improve and et cetera, et cetera. So all I can do is try and be as supportive and trusting as I can.
I want to add one more thing here, which just sort of dawned on me, is Ross said yes to being in a conversation with me and you on a platform that I created a little over a year ago. That to me is an example of him not only being supportive, but being in service, so he gets my mission, my purpose, what I'm trying to create in the world. And he's a part of that journey. And he said yes to doing something like this, and totally trusted that, okay, whatever we need to do is going to serve on a higher level. And when I think back, like when we were in our struggles, like I wouldn't have even been comfortable to ask that question, because we were on our own orbits. We were not working together. So I feel like this is a perfect example of how you can come together. He knows who I am. He knows what I'm looking to do. I know who he is. I know what he's looking to do, because we have those conversations. So that's the one thing I would just say is, like, the possibilities are endless if you get in a dialogue and not make any assumptions around what you think the other person is thinking or feeling.
Yeah, this is what edification looks like. He's edifying you, but with active support and showing up fully for you.
Thank you for edifying me.
You're welcome. I think it's just, I like to think or hope this, without sounding conceited, that it's kind of an important message. And I think, well, for what Jeanie and I have gone through, I'm always kind of obviously happy to help her, but obviously happy to help other people. And we've seen friends of ours, and recently go through some struggles as well. And I think from our experience, we were able to help them as well. So that's gratifying, if nothing else. And I think sort of gives you a little bit more, hopefully, wisdom, and then hopefully, as I say, pass that down to our children as well, or whoever wants to listen. One of the big things for me when I was going through this was I started a men's group with 2 other guys, and one of the things I think, I don't know if you really got it or not quite so much, but what I got out of it was, it got to the point where it's like, we don't actually need each other. But it took about 3-4 years to do that. because we were three guys, and I think this is one thing that I think guys struggle with generally. I don't know whether it's a United States thing. I think it's just guys in general aren't always comfortable with being emotionally open to other guys. You only get together, we get together for events, like watching a game, watching a match. Whereas this time we had this, me and two other guys. We kind of opened up, and we would discuss things very, very openly. Going from the physical intimacy issues or whatever to the emotional issues, et cetera, and that was really such a important thing. So I think for guys particularly, if they could kind of somehow try and find a male partner.
Well, Jeanie probably saw me snapping my fingers when you said, we don't need each other. I was like, are you sure Ross hasn't heard some of our private conversations, Jeanie? Because we talk about that all the time. The best marriages realize that you don't need each other. You want each other. And that makes the difference in you being stagnant. And that description you used earlier about just kind of sticking with it and staying stale versus you creating a place of joy for each other is knowing you are dope all by yourself and you're better together. So I appreciate you. And those were all of my questions for the day.
Naketa, thank you. Thanks to everybody for listening to another episode of Warriors at Work and letting us be a part of your warrior journey. You can ask questions and make suggestions for future topics at jc@jeaniecoomber.com. Connect with me personally on LinkedIn and Instagram, and join us on the Warrior Conversations channel on YouTube and at the Warrior Magic Community page on Facebook. You can find links to all these places on my website, jeaniecoomber.com, and most importantly, be sure to tell friends about us, subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Spreaker, and Spotify. It helps others find the show and puts more warrior magic out into the world.